Hello, welcome to my lightning strike. Today my lightning strike will be on uh, rucksack carrying. So when you go on a ruck march, for males and females, you have to walk multiple miles. So my semester-long lightning strike research has been on during these ruck marches. Does the placement of the rucksack and the rucksack style alter the prevalence of low back pain in the military, males versus females? So a little background, we know in general that males typically have a wider frame in the shoulders and more narrow hips, while females typically have more narrow shoulders and wider hips. A little more background on this is that females were not allowed into combat roles in the military until 2016. Uh, while they have still completed basic training and still have done ruck marches since they've started basic training, even well before 2016, what makes it different now is that non-combat roles typically do not have to go on long ruck marches once they've completed basic training. Typically, they have vehicles and things like that to carry them around in, or they'll go on short marches, such as like a mile or two. But in the combat role, you have to be able to carry that 45-pound pack up to 15 miles, 20 miles in a day. And so that's what makes this so much more prevalent. Now, the integration of females into combat roles has had a lot of backlash in recent years, um, simply because a lot of the older military members or hard-headed military members are concerned with the fact or the question of will these female soldiers be able to drag an injured soldier off the battlefield. In previous years, females have always been held to a different standard in terms of strength and fitness level, because genetically they're not typically as strong as males. They're not meant to be able to do as much. So the question has come up, will they be able to do the real task of pulling an injured soldier off the battlefield? Well, one of the Army's rebuttal to this was changing our physical fitness testing. So rather than just doing a 2 mile run, 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, they've made it to where it's more functional exercises, things that carry over more directly to what we do, as well as eliminating the age and sex difference between soldiers. So this new test is no longer based on a person's age and a person's gender. Now it is solely based on their job. So someone who has to lift heavy things, such as in the infantry, will have to do a lot more weight and a lot more reps than someone who sits in the office and does paperwork for most of the day. And so that's one of the big differences there that the Army came up with to kind of fight back and combat the idealism that females won't be able to do what the male does on the battlefield. Um, but looking into more of the rucksack and everything like that, so some of the research that's been found is that rucksacks have been designed for the past 60 years to accommodate the male body. They have a broad shoulder straps. They have a to me, it's a very thick waist belt, typically used or has been used similar to that of a weightlifting power belt, where you breathe in and you push against it to give yourself an extra base of support. Some studies have found that that belt can help reduce the stress on the shoulders by up to 14%. However, this is true on males. For females, it's been found that they tend to not like the shoulder straps as much. They're too wide, and they pinch too much on their shoulders. Many studies believe that this is because of the female shoulders being a little too narrow compared to what the shoulder straps have been designed for. And so these narrow shoulders on the wide shoulder straps forces the shoulder straps to hang off just a little bit. So it causes that pinching sensation and it causes that uncomfortability. As well as female soldiers have been found that when they have anywhere above 35 pounds with an increase in weight on top of that, that when they are ruck marching, they have a more forward head and they try to round their shoulders up like like so in order to accommodate that extra weight. On top of that, they tend to take shorter stride lengths as the weight gets heavier, as well as taking longer between each step. And this is all in comparison to men who, at 45 to 55 pounds, show little to no difference in these same aspects. Another thing that was found with the rucksacks in comparison to men versus women is the women would, or the thought behind it is that women should have to carry that weight more on their hips versus on their shoulders, like what men have to do, or what men should do. Reasoning behind this goes back to the anatomy, is that men typically have that wider shoulder, meanwhile women have the wider hips. So the thought process is put that weight closer to that center of gravity, which for men is higher up and for women is lower down. Is that so we should be considering putting that weight over that center of gravity versus treating everyone the same and just putting it on their shoulders. Some of the accommodations that people are coming up with and the ideas that they're trying to push through to the Army is altering the female rucksack so that it has the smaller shoulder straps, so a little bit thinner. They're not as wide as what you see up here. And then having a wider belt strap so that it forces more of that weight on the hips and less on the shoulders. Um, Another thought process behind it, as you can see between the two soldiers here, one soldier has all the weight sitting up above his shoulders while the other one has it more centered on his back. For men, it is better to have it up above the shoulders like he has it there. But the idea with the new rucksacks they might be designed for women is to seat it more on the lower portion of the back and have that belt tighter, like what you see on the soldier on the right. And that's the gist of what the idea behind how they're going to alter the rucksacks to accommodate women in combat roles to decrease their injury prevalence rates. And here are my references.